Chapter 821. Why don't you managers from the same company compete against each other? Yu Minmin asked, do you think Peng Yu did this? Lin Che said, the person who is always trying to push me out of the industry doesn't want me to make a comeback and wants to bring up my lack of acting skills in the past to ruin my reputation and at the same time, elevate herself. This person is none other than Peng Yu. Otherwise, these haters wouldn't mention that Hollywood movie and keep harping on it for no reason. They wouldn't mention my lack of acting skills and that incident about me being criticized for being incapable of taking up the Hollywood role. Hearing this, Yu Minmin found it logical and nodded her head. She muttered, people are merely scolding you on the internet right now. You can ignore them. The media will not really dare to write about you. They're still thinking up ways to contact me to arrange an interview. Lin Che said, it's fine. I've just been criticized a bit. Just then, Abby and Shui Yong walked out from behind. Lin Che, what happened? Have you been criticized again? Lin Che sighed and looked at her. Yes. Abby shook her head and said, that's why I prefer managing male celebrities. Male celebrities are never this troublesome. Lin Che said, there is no helping it. There will be a competition where there are women. 3 women make a market, 4 a fair. What's more, there are so many women in the entertainment industry. Yes, I find that women are more competitive in this aspect too. Perhaps it's because they're not as magnanimous as men. Look at Shui Yong, he hasn't really been criticized ever since he got famous. There have been a few unpleasant incidents but these were among the fans. Lin Che said, precisely. Male celebrities have it good. Their fans settle everything for them since most diehard fans are female. Male celebrities have many female fans as well. They protect their idols very well. As for us, we're far behind. Abby smiled and said, that can only mean that you're famous. If you weren't, no one would bother with you. These days, the hunter will always shoot the bird that sticks out. You became a threat to so many people after just returning. It means that you're influential. Lin Che said, I don't know if I'm influential. I just want her to stop all this. Abby said, by the way, Peng Yu and Shui Yong have both been participating in a program recently. It's called the National Acting Awards Ceremony. Coincidentally, you haven't officially made your comeback too. You should take this chance to make your comeback and crush Peng Yu completely. What do you think? The National Acting Awards Ceremony. Yes, it's a program that tests everyone's acting skills. Many reputable directors and producers act as judges off stage. There will also be some people in the audience from various professions voting. There will be a live competition for acting skills. It's a very fair competition. They have only just started filming the 3rd episode. The previous 2 episodes were quite well received. You should give it a try. Yu Minmin said, you can give it a try. However, this is a program in S City. You may have to fly over there to participate in it. Gu Jingze, will he agree? What did this have to do with Gu Jingze? Lin Che said, of course, he will agree. If you think I should participate, just help me contact the production team. But will they agree to it? Let me give them a call and ask. In no time, Abby found the director's contact number. She told him over the phone that their company had an actress who also wanted to participate in the competition for the National Acting Awards ceremony. Initially, the director had even said something along the lines of refusing her request. Abby immediately told him not to regret this later if he was now giving excuses to reject her request. Hearing this, he immediately guessed what this was about and hastily asked if Lin Che was the actress. Abby said that he was smart. The actress was precisely Lin Che. He immediately agreed but said to Abby in a slight surprise, your company is really strange. Even 2 managers in the same company compete against each other but you and Yu Minmin don't even compete at all. Shui Yong just joined the program and now, Lin Che is going to join too. Aren't you afraid that Shui Yang's acting skills will pale in comparison to Lin Che's? Then, everyone will say that Shui Yang's acting skills are not as good as Lin Che's. Abby smiled and asked, what is there to compete over? We're different from those companies out there. We never compete and there's nothing to compete over either. Think about it. Why should I compete with the first lady over this? Shui Yong is a man. Why should he compete with a woman over their acting skills? The director laughed out loud. You're absolutely right. Abby hung up the phone and said to them, look. The moment they heard it was Lin Che, they were ridiculously happy and immediately wanted to make arrangements. Yu Minmin said in disbelief, we heard all of it. But why did you talk about me being the first lady? It might make them think that I'm using my status to oppress you. What's wrong? I just wanted to air my grievances to them. If Shui Yong rejects any project in the future, I'll just cry and say that the head of our company, the president's wife, didn't allow me to take up the job. I'm subject to her and she's the president's wife, so I don't have a choice either. Yu Minmin's face was completely dark. So you're using me as your shield, right? Abby chuckled. Yes, yes, why, can't I? Yu Minmin sighed in disbelief. No way, I'm going to expose you. I'm going to say that Abby is from the Wesley family. She has always been the one threatening me. I have never threatened her. I'll see if they still believe that I'm suppressing you. Abby deliberately changed her expression and glared at Yu Minmin. Hey, are we really going to start fighting now? It's more healthy for us to fight. Anyway, there is competition where there are women, Yu Minmin said nonchalantly. They started laughing while Shui Yong watched on from the side. I think I should be the one exposing all of you. You women are too terrifying when you're together. Each of you is clearly of high social status and considerable wealth, yet you like to complain about being poor. Lin Che looked at Shui Yong. But Abby simply said that you won't mind competing against me in terms of acting skills. She just spoke on your behalf, but you're not criticizing her either. She's just your manager. Now that you're a huge star, you must remember that your manager can't casually speak on your behalf. Seeing this, Abby hastily asked, why? You're trying to drive us apart, right? Shui Yong looked at Abby, smiled, and said, I wish. I'm so famous, so I shouldn't have to listen to my manager. But look at how fierce she is. I'm afraid that she'll come and beat me up if I don't obey her. Furthermore, even though she's a girl, I may not be able to win against her. Even if I can't compete against the young miss of the Wesley family either. At this, Abby stood up with her hands on her waist and said, fine, fine. All of you are ganging up against me, right? You're all bullying me alone, humph. However, Abby looked at Lin Che and said, but I wonder if Peng Yu will back out of the show out of anger when she finds out that you're participating. Yu Minmin smiled and reacted, will she dare to? If she dares to, we'll just ask her bluntly what she means by pulling out of the show. Is she afraid? Abby said, Peng Yu has always been an arrogant person. She definitely wouldn't pull out of the show since she's so concerned about her reputation. After discussing, Lin Che headed home first to prepare. When she arrived home, she told Gu Jingze about it. Gu Jingze asked, are you going to S City? Yes, filming for the program is located there. One episode will probably take 2 days to film. Chapter 822. Right now, they were behaving as if they were serving their ancestors. Gu Jingze pressed his body against her back. Then, what am I supposed to do? She could feel him rubbing his cheek against her back. It made her itch. You'll stay at home with Nianian. Gu Jingze looked at her. You heartless person, are you going to abandon me just like that? Lin Che turned around, held his face, and said, be obedient. This older sister will come back soon. I'll bring back good food for you. Gu Jingze's face immediately darkened. He seriously felt that Lin Che had a death wish. She dared to call herself his older sister and even dared to pat his face. His eyes turned cloudy and they seemed as if they were already burning with accumulated blood. He looked down at her skirt, hugged her, and said, in that case, older sister, I want to eat something good right now. What do I do? He seized her skirt with his hand and lifted it. I'm going to have my fill of the delicious food here. Get lost. Lin Che quickly tried to escape, but of course he would not let her off easily. Since she was heading off to S City soon, he definitely had to properly eat whatever he was entitled to. The next day, Yu Minmin settled the terms of the collaboration with the other side. After signing the contract, they agreed on when Lin Che should go to S City. Thereafter, the news was quickly released. The production team immediately began publicizing the news, announcing that there would be a mystery guest making a surprise appearance. This episode of the National Acting Festival would be even more exciting. The challenges would be more difficult, the guests would be of a higher level, and the venue would be even more brilliant. Aside from this, a few popular bloggers on Weibo also revealed that there were rumors that the mystery guest in this episode was Lin Che, who was preparing to make a comeback. Following this, there was a bustle of activity on Weibo. Everyone was really looking forward to Lin Che's appearance in National Acting Festival. Many people also started speculating about Lin Che's reason for choosing to make her comeback through National Acting Festival. Everyone knew when they had been promoting this episode that there were already many highlights: Peng Yu, Shui Yong and a few new actors and actresses. All of them would attract quite an audience, but now, the production team had actually added Lin Che to the episode. Some people wondered if the production team intentionally wanted to pit the two of them against each other, since Peng Yu was always being compared to Lin Che. As expected, Peng Yu exploded with anger upon seeing the news. She immediately called the production team to ask what exactly was going on. The production team explained to her that it was for the purpose of making this episode of the program even more exciting. Peng Yu said furiously, "But you still should have informed us in advance." "Humph. I can't believe you actually invited Lin Che. If you're going to do this, I don't really want to work with a production team that makes last-minute changes." What she meant was, if Lin Che was present, she would not be present. If she was present, Lin Che would not be present. The production team could only say, "We couldn't help this either. If you really don't want to participate, we can just make an announcement too. But we can't actively breach our contract with Lin Che. If you want to terminate the contract, we will just compensate you accordingly." Peng Yu was so angry that she could not speak. She felt like her entire body was shuddering from the chills. She felt uncomfortable all over because of his words. Were they saying that they would rather her pull out of the show than make Lin Che pull out? In actual fact, that was a matter of course. But Peng Yu had not analyzed the numbers first. Initially, the National Acting Festival had been improving bit by bit. However, it had always been unable to oust the more popular variety programs from their top spots. Those programs occupied the top ranks all year round and did not give other programs any chance at all. However, the National Acting Festival was now becoming more and more of a hot topic after the news about Lin Che had been released. It became the most popular topic of discussion immediately. People were constantly talking about it, making them gasp in amazement. The production team was looking forward to the episode on that day. They thought that the ratings for the episode would definitely be quite good. They were amazed and could not believe that Lin Che, who had left the industry for so long, still had so much public appeal. Of course, they would rather have Lin Che with them now. They would not consider how Peng Yu felt. Furthermore, they were also sure that Peng Yu was all talk and no action. She definitely would not refuse to participate. In fact, they thought that she definitely would not. Peng Yu was so angry that she felt unwell. She sat there and kept shivering. Her staff frantically walked towards her in fright and asked, "Why don't we pull out of the show?" Peng Yu slapped him without hesitation, venting all her anger on her own staff member. "Pull out of the show? Why should we? If you find excuses not to go now, everyone will say that I'm afraid. Of course, I'm not. Why should I be afraid of her? Humph." The staff's face was stinging from pain at being slapped. However, it was the anger that he felt even more strongly. He looked at Peng Yu and no longer wanted to bother with her as well. He thought of just letting her do whatever she wanted to do and letting her seek death if she wanted to. It was not as if they wanted to bother about her. There were so many celebrities anyway. If Peng Yu really took the road to ruin, he could just resign and go somewhere else. When he thought about it, Lin Che's team was more stable. After so many years, few people had resigned and walked away and continued working steadily and surely. Since the team was so stable, news about Lin Che would obviously be around for a longer time than other people. In no time, Lin Che flew to S City from B City. After getting off the plane, Gu Jingze called her to ask where she was. Lin Che said, "Okay. I just got off the plane. I'm fine. I'm using the safety passage. There aren't many people around either. Let me know when you reach the hotel." "Alright, go ahead." Lin Che came to S City with Yu Minmin. Shui Yong and Abby would head on over after a schedule. The hotel they had booked for Lin Che was extremely luxurious. Lin Che had not asked them for it, but the production team was so happy now. Forget a luxurious hotel. If Lin Che wanted to stay in a villa, they would book one for her too. The production team waited for Lin Che at the entrance. When they saw Lin Che, they hastily went to welcome her as if they were waiting upon a Buddha. Lin Che still found it strange. She said softly to Yu Minmin beside her, their program is on the top of the charts because of you right now. I heard that the television station and the production team are all so happy now that they look at you as if they're looking at their family. Lin Che smiled at the production team. Nice to meet you. Wow, Sister Che, you're really just as elegant as you were back then. You've become more and more beautiful. Your appearance hasn't changed at all and you have even become much more elegant, the other party complimented her. Lin Che listened skeptically. She knew that they were the best at flattering people with pretty words. Otherwise, how could they have gotten so many celebrities on the show? Lin Che smiled and said, thank you for the hard work this time. No problem, no problem. It's only right that we do all this. Sister Che, it's our honor that you chose to make your comeback through our program. The director told us that we must make special arrangements for you this time so that your appearance will be spectacular. Beside her, Yu Minmin said, in that case, thank you so much. But to be honest, Lin Che doesn't need any special arrangements either. We will definitely cooperate with the production team anyway as long as it's within our acceptable limits. By the way, let's discuss this in private. We want to compete with Peng Yu. Chapter 823. For some reason, she was very confident. The production team froze. Thereafter, they understood what Yu Minmin meant. They thought to themselves that Lin Che was really quite confident. Peng Yu had been one of the more popular actresses in recent years. Furthermore, she had gained sufficient recognition for her acting skills as well. Lin Che had not acted in many years. If she was placed in the same group as Peng Yu but did not win, then her comeback this time would definitely be in slight jeopardy. If she won this time, it would be a product of her courage. However, if she lost the moment she made her comeback, she would really be on the road to ruin. However, they did not know that Lin Che had taken up the offer precisely to show Peng Yu who was the boss. Their target was Peng Yu, so of course, they started taking aim at Peng Yu now that they were here. The production team said, all right. As long as Sister Che wants that, our team will definitely do everything we can to make sure that happens. Yu Minmin smiled and said, sure. In that case, I'll thank you on Lin Che's behalf. Don't worry. We will definitely have a powerful ability to create hype with Peng Yu. You won't regret the arrangement you've made. The production team froze. They looked at Yu Minmin's confident manner and wondered in slight astonishment why she was so sure that Lin Che could defeat Peng Yu. Was she underestimating the enemy too much? No matter what, Peng Yu was at least an A-list celebrity. Nevertheless, they were, of course, not afraid of being hotly discussed. Initially, they had even worried that Lin Che would not want too much comparison with Peng Yu. Now, it seemed that Lin Che had no concerns at all in this respect. As for the aftermath, whether it was Lin Che or Peng Yu who lost would not affect the production team at all. When the episode aired and the viewer ratings and number of streams rose, their program would be a success. That was the most important thing. They were completely unconcerned with the effect that this competition would have on Lin Che's comeback. Lin Che returned to her room and started to watch the day's news carefully. Sure enough, the production team had already found internet ghostwriters to post comments and create hype. The most popular bloggers on Weibo began to speculate whether the production team had arranged for Lin Che to compete with Peng Yu. As Lin Che had not made an appearance for many years, no one knew if her acting skills had regressed or improved. Thus, no one knew exactly how things would turn out either. The program was suddenly shrouded in a lot of suspense and it became a hot topic of discussion once again. Meanwhile, back at home. After Lin Che had left for S-City, Ji Yushinian felt that it was necessary to test Nianian. While Lin Che had been around, he had worried that Lin Che would be unhappy that he was pressuring Ji Yushinian. However, Gu Jingze still needed to know how smart Ji Yushinian was and his abilities right now so that he could arrange for training programs. Ji Jingze took Ji Yushinian to Chen Yucheng's place for a test. Chen Yucheng looked at Ji Yushinian and said, "Hey, kid. Both of my children are going to the same kindergarten as you in the latter half of the year. You can't bully the two young'uns, all right?" Ji Yushinian asked, "Will I feel some sense of accomplishment in bullying them?" "Tisk. In that case, I'll make them gang up against you." Chen Yucheng frowned upon the haughty manner of this little imp. He was seriously just as unreasonable as his father. As he looked at the father and son, he really found them extremely annoying. Gu Jingze looked up. Parents these days tend to think that they can control their children. The expression on Chen Yucheng's face turned foul at being criticized. It seemed that he was not really able to control the two kids at home. They did not listen to him at all. Before having children, he had never expected that he would have such troublesome children. Of course, kids these days were taken care of and protected by their mothers, nannies, and their grandparents. Thus, they were undisciplined and out of control. They were afraid of nothing. Why would they be afraid of him? He looked at Gu Jingze and said, "I'm their father. Just you wait and see if they will end up obeying me, humph." Gu Jingze looked at him with a poker face. "Are you done or not? Quick, run the tests." Yes, boss. I'll do it immediately." He muttered, "I would only personally run such an easy test at your request. If someone else asked me to do it, I would have instructed my subordinate to do it, yet you're still rushing me." Gu Jingze looked at him. "Do you not want your research funds anymore?" "Hey, I didn't say anything." Chen Yucheng conducted some tests and found out that Gu Jingze's body did not have the same abnormality that Gu Jingze's did for the time being. He had no reaction to a woman's blood. Thereafter, Chen Yucheng started testing his intelligence. After first giving him the test questions, Gu Jingze looked up skeptically and asked, "Are there any other novel questions? I've done IQ test questions like these over and over again online." Chen Yucheng had initially used test questions for children. He had no choice but to increase the level of difficulty. In the end, after a few rounds of testing, Chen Yucheng took the results of the tests out of the room and said to Gu Jingze, "I didn't expect your son to score so high on the tests." His IQ score was above 140 because whether it was in terms of speed or accuracy, he was much more intelligent than average people. He was literally a genius. No wonder he was so impressive from a young age. Gu Jingze looked at the questions and the answers before nodding his head. Thereafter, he returned to the room and said to Gu Jingze, "I may take you to a training institute in the future. However, don't tell your mother about this for the time being." Gu Jingze said, "Oh, that's great. Will it be more fun than kindergarten?" "Of course, but it will also be more brutal and arduous. You'll have to prepare yourself. I will give you a choice. You don't have to go if you don't want to. But if you go, you absolutely cannot give up halfway." Gu Jingze sat there thinking, his little brain running non-stop. Of course, he knew that the brutality his father spoke of was definitely extraordinary. Still, he wanted to become brilliant. If he was more capable, his mother would no longer be bullied. His mother would not need to hide from anyone anymore. She would be able to live the life she wanted without worry. If so, he felt that he was willing to tolerate such suffering. He looked at Gu Jingze and nodded vigorously. "I'm not afraid of difficulties." Gu Jingze said, "If you can still say this once you're there, then you're really courageous." Gu Jingze said, "I definitely will." After returning home, Gu Jingze made some arrangements about his bodyguards. He also allocated more bodyguards to protect and follow Gu Jingze in secret. Although he loved his own child immensely, his love was different from maternal love. He had to understand rationally that more capability came with more responsibility. Since he was capable, he had to have the skills to support this capability. Only then would he not suffer at the hands of others in the future. While he would suffer temporarily, he would later understand that all this hard work would not go to waste. Hard work would never be put to waste. Some people may think at the start that it was futile, but one day, the things that they had learned would help them in unexpected ways. He had attained what he had today precisely because he had been fully prepared. It seemed that many things needed no learning, but when the time came for them to be put to use later, the person who was prepared would be the true winner. Chapter 824. Such simple tricks, yet you still want to go up against me. Lin Che checked into the hotel. The room they had reserved for Yu Minmin was also a suite. Although Yu Minmin was a manager and managers were usually allocated slightly less comfortable rooms than their artists, this manager was different from other managers. It would be a joke to treat her so. She was the first lady, so the production team had also specially made this arrangement for her. The purpose of a manager accompanying a celebrity was to make arrangements for the celebrity. At the same time, a manager had to speak on the celebrity's behalf. There were some things that a celebrity could not conveniently say out of fear of getting criticized for being too difficult. It would affect the celebrity's image if word spread. The manager needed to say these things to shield the celebrity. That was why Yu Minmin had been the one speaking firmly to the production team earlier while Lin Che remained silent in the background. Lin Che and Yu Minmin had many years of chemistry. Even without developing their chemistry or having a discussion, they each knew what the other was thinking. Naturally, it was much more convenient. Abby and Shui Yang arrived very soon after. Abby moved into the same room as Yu Minmin. In the afternoon, all of them headed to the filming location for a rehearsal. Shui Yang said, "I heard that Peng Yu is here too. However, she's staying in the Hilton Hotel. I reckon she doesn't want to stay with you." Lin Che said, "Since she has money, she can stay elsewhere if she wants to. I'll just comply with the arrangements." Their company had a tradition. Celebrities from their company were absolutely not picky about these things. This had improved their company's reputation immensely. In any case, they were being considerate of the production team's budget. They could stay in slightly worse conditions so that more of the budget could be spent on the program. If the program was good, it would be good for their reputation as well. At night, filming for the program began. Peng Yu had sent someone to investigate. It had been a long time. She was extremely worried while she was in the nanny van. She looked outside and asked the staff, "What's going on? Did you see what Lin Che wore to the venue? Did the production team prepare it for her or did she bring her own outfit?" "About that I really don't know. Lin Che was barefaced when she went to the venue in the afternoon. She only went to put on makeup at night. She hasn't arrived yet." Shit, Peng Yu was really dying from anxiousness. She already had the intention of viciously suppressing Lin Che so that there was no way she could win against her again. Apart from that, what segment is she going to perform for the competition this time? Is she going to act with Shui Yang? Did you see what part she has decided to perform? We saw it. She will be acting with Shui Yang. It's a romance series. The script is here. As if presenting a treasure, the staff quickly brought the script to her. The moment she saw the script, she slapped the staff member once again. The staff wore an aggrieved expression. Peng Yu asked, "Since you saw it a long time ago, why didn't you tell me earlier?" Humph. The staff was truly speechless. But he looked at Peng Yu and didn't dare to say a word even though he was angry. Peng Yu was indiscriminately venting her anger outward because she was anxious. Peng Yu looked at the script and scoffed. "I'm going to change the script now. I want to play this role." The staff said in disbelief, "My dear Peng Yu, we have rehearsed the other script so many times. Now, you want to change your script to this one. You won't do as well. What are you going to do? Do you not believe in my acting skills?" Peng Yu snorted and asked harshly, "Do you also think that I can't compare to her in terms of acting skills?" "No. I want the director to shift my acting slot in front of Lin Che's right now. Otherwise, I'll pull out of the show now. I'll see what other choices the production team has. How are they going to find someone to fill my spot at such late notice?" The staff was truly speechless. They thought of how everyone even criticized them. They would usually say for no reason that Peng Yu's team was terrible and dragged her down, but the premise was that they were able to control Peng Yu in the first place. It was all because Peng Yu herself had numerous bad ideas. However, she did not even have to say anything since her staff members always made the necessary arrangements. They had been cursed out quite terribly, but no one knew that they themselves were in a very bad predicament too. The staff members immediately contacted the production team. Upon hearing the news, the production team nearly exploded from anger. Peng Yu was known to be troublesome. Now, it seemed that this was definitely true. One of the directors asked, "Why don't we just ignore her? She can back out if she wants to. We can't give her what she wants." Someone beside him said hastily, "We can't do that. Today's episode was supposed to be a showdown between her and Lin Che. If she backs out, we'll be cursed out for deceiving the audience." The production team had done nothing wrong either. What did this have to do with them? They did not deceive the audience about anything. They had been stood up all of a sudden. They were definitely not following some script and had not planned this in advance. It was Peng Yu who was creating trouble. The members of the production team thought about it before sending someone to ask for Lin Che's opinion. If Lin Che was not agreeable, then they would not risk offending Lin Che even if they had to make Peng Yu pull out. After all, Lin Che was the most important person today. In the end, the news reached Lin Che while she was doing her makeup. She heard the staff members cursing as they explained it to her with pained expressions on their faces. She smiled and said, "It's fine. Just do as Peng Yu says. Why is she pulling out?" She had already encountered such tricks all those years ago. How could she still be afraid? Lin Che smiled faintly. "Tell the director that we'll cooperate with the team. We are fine with whatever demand Peng Yu has." Hearing this, the staff member thought, how agreeable Lin Che was. In comparison, Peng Yu was simply trash. The staff member left in a hurry. When he told the director what Lin Che had said, the director was likewise immensely grateful. Yu Minmin watched the staff leave and asked Lin Che, "Is she trying to play tricks?" Lin Che said, "She's looking for trouble. She better be sure that she won't regret it in the future." Yu Minmin smiled. "Seriously, she thinks we spent all those years in the industry doing nothing. I can't believe she tried this on us. I really look forward to seeing the consequences of what she has done." Upon receiving the news that the production team had immediately agreed as she had expected, Peng Yu then told the driver to continue driving from where they had stopped by the roadside. She scoffed and slapped the script. "Told you so. The directors don't dare to offend me." Her staff members still wanted to persuade her, but seeing that Peng Yu had already made her decision, they could only swallow their words and keep their mouths shut. Lin Che watched from backstage. She heard a staff member call for her, informing her that everything was ready and she could make her appearance very soon. With her dress in tow, Lin Che calmly walked out. The moment she stepped out, she ran into Peng Yu, who had been late for many hours and had just arrived. Upon seeing Lin Che, Peng Yu's gaze first hardened. However, the beautiful golden silk gown Lin Che was wearing then attracted her gaze immediately. The golden silk shone under the light, giving her an impressive air all around her. Peng Yu could tell with one look that the golden silk threads were definitely not cheap goods. Otherwise, they would not look so textured. This piece of clothing must be extremely expensive. Her eyes instantly turned vicious again as she watched Lin Che brush past her. Lin Che truly looked very self-important. She immediately walked towards her own dressing room in a fury. After entering the room, she slammed the door and shouted at her staff members, "What clothes did the production team give us? What clothes did they give her? They're being way too biased." Her staff member was on tenterhooks. "About that, I'll go and find out what's going on now." Chapter 825. I'm just a washed-out actress. Her staff member immediately said, "Don't be anxious. We'll go and ask them right now." The staff member frantically went out to question the production team. He asked them why they treated Lin Che so well but treated Peng Yu so badly when both were similarly guests. In the end, the production team said frankly, "Lin Che brought that dress herself. It has nothing to do with us." After being ridiculed, the staff member had no choice but to sneak back into the dressing room with his tail between his legs. He informed Peng Yu of the matter and Peng Yu asked in complete surprise, "Did she bring it herself?" "I searched for the gown online. It's from a luxury brand from England. It's exclusive to royalty and every piece is custom made. They only have a few pieces of each design and every single piece is ridiculously expensive. Why did she buy such an expensive gown?" Her staff member did not know what to say. Although Peng Yu was reluctant to admit defeat, she could only clench her teeth and scoff. "It looks like Lin Che is serious about competing with me. She spent such a large sum of money on an expensive gown just to oppose me." She felt that she had miscalculated. She had not expected Lin Che to make such adequate preparations. She even exhausted her abilities in her clothing. Fortunately, Peng Yu still had the script with her. She read the script and practiced her lines once in the dressing room. She felt very satisfied with herself. Then, she left the dressing room. Outside. When Lin Che walked out of her dressing room, everyone quickly gathered around her to make subsequent arrangements. Lin Che looked elegant and noble in her dress. Her slender waist was accentuated by the sash at her waist, which made her waist look as if a hand could wrap around it. As she had not had surgery done on her chest, it was proportionate to the rest of her body and looked extremely natural. Her gown was black and embroidered with gold thread. It looked grand and elegant, natural and unrestrained. Her porcelain white skin was so white that it seemed translucent. She was like a lotus flower that grew out of the mud, unsullied, pure, and natural. Everyone looked at her and felt that Lin Che had an even more impressive air because of the gown. They could not help but look at her. Initially, they had not wanted the guests to bring their own clothing since they had a brand sponsoring the program. However, after seeing that the clothing Lin Che had brought herself was so expensive, they could only give up on the idea. How could their sponsor brand compare to the exclusive brand of the English royalty? Besides, she looked beautiful indeed when she was wearing this gown. She was so beautiful that she made them gasp in admiration. In no time, the countdown to the program started. Ladies, gentlemen, members of the audience, hello everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of National Acting Festival. Following the host's passionate voice, the audience below started clapping as well. The audience at the venue was huge today. The director sat in the director's seat while the members of the audience held voting devices in their hands. Everyone watched the host make the introductions. Thereafter, the guests started to enter the stage one after another. The first to enter was a soft-looking and white-skinned teen idol. He was only 18 years old and was new to the industry. Everyone liked him the moment they saw him. After him, several popular actresses of the new generation entered the stage with the music. Shui Yong then made his appearance. The audience clamored and the fans seated in the back rows who did not have any voting rights started screaming. Behind him, Peng Yu appeared at this moment as well. She smiled faintly and the way she tilted her head was very adorable as well. Backstage, the production team felt the instinctive urge to purse their lips. She behaved in such a repulsive manner backstage, but she was so good at putting up a pretense on stage. Just then, the host started speaking again. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our mystery guest today with our warmest applause and cheers. Thereafter, the live music suddenly turned into a warmer chord progression. On the large screen, the roles that Lin Che had previously played appeared one by one. The unforgettable roles she had played appeared on the screen in all their glory. Then, at the back of the stage, the screen suddenly split into two and moved in opposite directions. In the middle, a pair of gigantic golden wings appeared. The wings opened and the person behind immediately appeared in front of the audience like an angel of the dark night. Wow, Lin Che. Good gracious, they made Lin Che's appearance such a grand affair. Dear me, as expected of Lin Che. She's probably the main guest for today. There were so many guests but only Lin Che was given such good treatment. When the guests who appeared before her saw this, they wanted to be envious. However, they looked at Lin Che and also thought that her appearance would definitely not be ordinary since she had been the topic of discussion for so long. How she appeared was quite good. She had not alighted from a helicopter only because the venue was too small. Some people simply had such a capability. There was no point in being envious. They were aware that they were neither as hot a topic as Lin Che was nor were they more popular than her. When they saw Lin Che dressed so beautifully, they felt that she deserved all of this too. Of course, they were sincerely convinced. But how could Peng Yu admit defeat? When she saw how everyone at the venue was putting Lin Che on such a high pedestal, she once again felt regretful. She felt that she should not have come at all. She was here for the sole reason of serving as a contrast. But in reality, it was basically impossible for her not to come. She was indeed a person who cared immensely about her pride. There was no way she would let anyone think that she had escaped at the last minute because she could not beat Lin Che. She looked in Lin Che's direction and thought, forget it. So what if Lin Che's appearance was grand? The hype around her was created by hot topics, so the production team had no choice but to value her. However, the audience at the venue was very fair. Only their acting skills would speak for them. Lin Che stood there. As she looked at the audience down below, she even felt slightly dizzy for a moment. Seriously, she had left the stage for too long. Now that she was standing here, she actually felt a little unfamiliar with all of this. Especially when she saw the massive audience down below. After Lin Che had made her appearance, all the preparations that the production team had made were in place and ready. The host looked at Lin Che and quickly walked towards her to interview her. Lin Che, for real, I thought I was dreaming when I saw you. Long time no see, long time no see. Lin Che smiled and pushed her hair aside. With the microphone in her hand, she looked at the audience and said, yes. I feel like I'm dreaming too. Especially since I knew this opportunity didn't come by easily, I specially prepared a particularly tight outfit. Right now, I feel like I'm about to suffocate. Lin Che said something so relatable upon her appearance. She was not pretentious at all, nor did she beat about the bush. While listening, the audience down below could not help but look at her. It was true that Lin Che's waist was very tightly wound. Her outfit was extraordinarily beautiful and made everyone gasp in admiration at her great figure. Her words made everyone instinctively feel that she was very relatable. She also successfully made everyone notice what was special about her outfit. The host himself was tickled funny and said, really? But I heard that our program spent a lot of money to invite you here. Lin Che said, no way. I didn't ask for money in coming here. I'm a washed-out celebrity. I wouldn't dare ask for money from such a well-known program. It's good enough that they gave me a chance. Everyone at the venue started laughing. Lin Che could not be considered a washed-out celebrity. She had merely left temporarily. Although everyone initially thought that actors who left for a few years before returning were probably already washed out, Lin Che caused a stir upon returning and successfully grabbed the headlines. She was not washed out at all. However, by mocking herself she had caused everyone to like her immediately. They recalled that Lin Che had always such a carefree personality. The way she spoke was particularly interesting and relatable. Furthermore, she was so beautiful. That was why she became famous so quickly back then. Chapter 826. She was too smart for her own good. The host asked, what have you been up to recently? Lin Che took the microphone, looked at the host, and replied, I've been studying abroad and taking a break to recuperate my health. I've also been watching the news about the domestic entertainment industry overseas. I read gossip news sometimes. When I look at the entertainment industry from the point of view of an audience, I really think that it's a very interesting industry indeed. She smiled and looked at Peng Yu at the other end. In actual fact, these words were aimed at Peng Yu. However, several people on stage did not register this. On the other hand, many people online were praising Lin Che. They commented that Lin Che had successfully managed to calmly satirize all the insults Peng Yu had hurled at her in the past, one by one. The host felt that Lin Che was easy to converse with and spoke in a very interesting manner. Unknowingly, he chatted with her a fair bit. Only after a few questions and answers was it time for another guest's turn. When Peng Yu and Lin Che appeared in the same frame for the first time and stood closer to one another, the difference between the two became even more apparent. Lin Che was so natural and unrestrained, whereas Peng Yu seemed so pretentious. People online had subconsciously started to compare the two. From the live stream, they felt that Lin Che had really triumphed based on her strong presence. However, the real program had only just begun. There were two parts to the acting competition, a script of their own choice and a script allocated to them by the production team. During the first part, where they acted out a script of their choice, everyone could choose which segment they wanted to perform. As for the selected script in the second half, the production team would decide which script they were to act out. On stage, the host was cheerfully reciting his advertising lines. At the same time, he repeated the rules once again and then began introducing the contestants. The directors on the judging panel looked at the contestants on stage from below. The score they gave would take up 60% of the total score, while the audience votes would take up the 40%. The directors' scores were given heavier weight because they were ultimately much more professional and could tell whether the actors were good or not. As for the audience, they voted as they liked. They could vote just based on who they liked, so even though the weight given to their votes was not insignificant, it was still lower than that given to the directors on the judging panel. Ultimately, the sum of the two scores would be each contestant's final score. The directors looked at the contestants in front of them before glancing at the documents in their hands. In actual fact, they obviously knew about these celebrities as well. They knew that all of them, especially the ones who were still active in the industry and those who had uncommon acting skills. Although Peng Yu did not have a particularly good reputation, her acting skills were actually quite good. But Lin Che. At present, they did not know exactly how good Lin Che was. Although everyone used to praise Lin Che for her good acting skills, the roles she played, though very naturally acted, did not show how good she was at acting. Also, she had not acted at all for the past few years. They felt that she would definitely pale in comparison to Peng Yu, who had always been active and thriving in the industry. As a result, they did not actually have very high expectations for Lin Che in terms of professionalism. It was not long before the competition finally began. The first few performances were worthy of praise. Nowadays, the new actors and actresses had studied acting in some depth, especially those who dared to participate in the National Acting Festival. It was Shui Yang's turn. Before going up on stage, he first greeted Lin Che. Lin Che gave him an encouraging smile and watched him go up. The person acting alongside him was a new actor from their company. The two of them were going to act out a classic scene from a television series. While watching Shui Yang's performance, Lin Che could not help but think of his youthful face and rebellious manner the first time she saw him. To be honest, he had been just like a hooligan. But now, he became a dazzling star. Lin Che instinctively thought with pride that she seemed to have quite a good eye too. Furthermore, Shui Yang's acting skills were really quite good now. He had probably worked very hard. The end of his performance was met with so much applause. The directors also felt that he was not bad. They looked at each other and could not stop praising him. Meanwhile, off stage, Peng Yu had been looking in Lin Che's direction from the start. However, Lin Che did not even glance at her and acted as if she did not exist at all. The way she behaved made Peng Yu want to throw a fit even if she couldn't. Now that it was finally her turn, she stood up and looked in Lin Che's direction. She lifted her sharp chin and smiled faintly. Then, she looked directly at Lin Che and said, "Senior Lin Che, it's going to my turn soon. You probably haven't seen my work yet since you've been away for so long. I'll have to trouble you to give me some pointers this time." Lin Che smiled slightly. "Is that so? In that case, do your best." Peng Yu scoffed and headed straight onto the stage haughtily. She thought maliciously to herself, "Lin Che, just you wait and see, I'll see what happens to you later." Thereafter, Peng Yu immediately tossed all thoughts aside and exhausted all her strength to perform the scene that Lin Che had initially wanted to perform. Down below, the directors froze and flipped through the original script. They realized that Peng Yu had not initially intended to perform this scene. Why had she suddenly changed her mind? The production team looked on gloomily as well. They had been worried from early on that Peng Yu would get into trouble at this juncture. They did not expect her to actually get into trouble. Lin Che was the only one with an unwaveringly calm expression on her face as she watched Peng Yu perform with all her effort. Since the production team had obtained the scripts beforehand and had also given the same to the directors on the judging panel, all of them could instantly tell that Peng Yu had taken Lin Che's script for her own performance. It was such a mean trick. The members of the production team were hitting their heads and thinking to themselves, no wonder Peng Yu had insisted on performing before Lin Che. It was all because of this plan. Now that she had done this, what would happen to Lin Che later? What would happen to their program later? Two of the same performances, there would be so much discussion about this. However, when the production team looked at Lin Che on stage, they noticed in surprise that she was looking down completely unperturbed while watching Peng Yu perform. She did not seem anxious at all. Her calm manner made the production team calm down as well. Lin Che's expression seemed to have given them great motivation to quiet down as well and think of a plan to deal with the imminent situation. However, at this moment, Yu Minmin had suddenly come forth with a USB drive and a script in hand. She smiled and said to the production team, "Lin Che will perform this scene later." Huh. The production team flipped open the script. Yu Minmin said, "To prevent any unforeseen incidents from happening, we prepared two proposals. This is Lin Che's second proposal." The production team flipped open the script only to see a musical. Was Lin Che going to act out a musical? No way this. Yu Minmin said, "The USB drive I just gave you has the edited music. You can just play it. We've prepared everything." A mysterious smile appeared on Yu Minmin's face. Those in the production team who had experience immediately understood that Lin Che had prepared the script for the musical long ago. The previous script had been a deliberate smokescreen for Peng Yu. Furthermore, Peng Yu fell for it so easily. She had immediately given up the scene she had originally intended to snatch and perform Lin Che's script. Fantastic. This was all Peng Yu amounted to, but she still wanted to go up against Lin Che. Lin Che was no doubt a senior in the industry who had gone through arduous training. She had definitely never paid any attention to someone like Peng Yu. Chapter 827, an exciting turn of events. Off stage, the directors paid almost no attention to Peng Yu's performance. All of their thoughts were still on the script. They looked at the script and wondered what Lin Che would do later and what exactly was going on as well. In actual fact, Peng Yu's performance was truly worthy of praise too. Her performance was very precise. The fact that she could reach such a standard in a short time showed that she was a person with real capability. Down below, the audience was unaware of the actual situation and watching her performance with immense satisfaction. They felt that Peng Yu had indeed proved herself to be Peng Yu. Her acting skills remained great as expected. After watching Peng Yu's performance, the audience instinctively began to worry for Lin Che, who was to perform after her. Most people had no confidence in Lin Che. Their reasons were mostly the same. They had no confidence in Lin Che all because she had left for too long and they were worried that her acting skills could not keep up. At the end of Peng Yu's performance, there was thunderous applause. When she walked off the stage and saw the directors on the judging panel and the other staff members all discussing among themselves, she knew that she had successfully upset the program schedule. However, she was totally unconcerned about this. In any event, her performance had already ended. Lin Che was the one who had been thrown off. Lin Che would be the one to decide how she should deal with it. To be honest, the more trouble it gave Lin Che, the better it was for her. Peng Yu was already eagerly waiting to see the consequences of the disruption. After leaving the stage, Peng Yu immediately snorted at her own staff members. She haughtily shrugged off her stage outfit, sat down, and demanded some water. I told you so. You guys shouldn't worry about my acting skills. How was it? How was my performance just now? A staff member hastily brought her some tea to soothe her throat while saying respectfully, it was great. You were really brilliant. Of course, we know how good we are, but safety comes first. It was definitely not because we didn't trust you. Peng Yu had exceeded expectations in completing the script earlier. Her performance was precise. Whether it was her detailed expressions or her larger actions and more impactful lines, all of it was extremely touching. The audience below even started crying while watching her performance. The scene that Lin Che had chosen to perform was not bad as well. As long as one was even slightly good at acting, the impact of the performance would be good. If Lin Che had performed the same scene before Peng Yu, then it will really be a little difficult to determine who was the better of the two. Everyone was even feeling glad for Peng Yu. They thought that she had had good luck this time and ended up acting pretty well. Now, they were going to wait and see how Lin Che would deal with this. Peng Yu crossed her legs and looked at the stage in front of her. Things were happening much slower on stage now. The corners of Peng Yu's lips turned up. However, just then, the music suddenly started playing. The lively melody that played out of the blue surprised everyone a little. What was Lin Che doing? Had she changed her script? What script had she changed to? Before everyone could register what was happening, Lin Che suddenly descended from above and appeared on stage on hanging wire. She was wearing a white midi dress with a very long train. She held one side of the dress in her hand and flew past them like a butterfly fluttering in the sky. When she landed on stage amidst the music, she swiftly turned full circle before suddenly lifting her leg immediately to her head. As the music played, she did not stop and started dancing with the male actors who appeared after her one by one. The directors on the judging panel finally understood the situation. She had chosen to act out a scene from a musical. No one had ever known that Lin Che could dance. In the past, Lin Che had never really danced. This refreshing scene really shocked everyone. What was more amazing was that every one of Lin Che's nimble movements reached a professional level. All her facial expressions and movements were extremely precise. Although some people may think that a musical does not require acting skills, the truth was actually different. Musicals were extremely challenging in terms of acting skills. The actors had to dance and remember the movements to keep up with the song. They also needed to have appropriate emotions and expressions. Because the song and dance were dazzling, people would only notice her if her expressions were completely on point. Furthermore, if she could fully show her acting prowess, the musical would be more moving and more exciting compared to a script without song and dance. Once the lively music ended, the sad part began. Lin Che's movements slowed. She had initially been a lively butterfly, but her dance became a silent and slow one. However, every movement, accompanied by her pained expression, made the audience feel as if they were in the same situation and personally experiencing it. Subsequently, her movements proceeded to gradually speed up as if she was depicting how a person eventually walked out of despair and accepted reality, gradually finding his own hope. Although it was painful, time still had to go on. Although it was painful, life could not end here. She stood up bit by bit. The surge in her emotions immediately made her performance even more moving. Everyone's hearts were full of hope as if they were looking at a female warrior. Finally, the music ended at its climax. Lin Che struck her final pose. The entire audience was cheering. The camera lens swept across the audience. Everyone was applauding and looked completely emotional. They were crying and laughing and were extremely touched. Lin Che's musical performance was a bolt out of the blue. It seemed to make the atmosphere at the venue turn very active. Furthermore, it was the only musical performance over the past few days and immediately stirred up the audience very much as well. At the end of the performance, even the directors stood up. They looked at Lin Che and thought that this was what an actor was. She resembled whichever role she played. Furthermore, she was always able to absorb herself in her role at any time. They felt ashamed for having doubted Lin Che's acting skills earlier. When they looked at Lin Che, they felt that she deserved a high score. After the performance ended, the host quickly began his next round of interviews before the scores were revealed. At this moment, the production team realized that Peng Yu had disappeared. She had escaped the interview this time and no one knew where she had gone. However, it no longer mattered now. The host did not bother with Peng Yu and started off by saying to Lin Che while she was sitting there, "I've never seen you dance." Lin Che smiled and said, "I think that a person must constantly improve. It's also because the competition is so tough these days. There are so many new young talents. If I don't work hard, I'll be buried in the sand. That's why I quickly developed my abilities. I developed all the potential abilities I still had." The host smiled and asked, "Then, how did you think of performing a musical?" Lin Che replied, "I wanted to sing but I was afraid that your ears wouldn't be able to take it." Everyone immediately remembered that Lin Che was tone deaf and had even been mocked for it in the past. The audience started laughing as well. The host smiled and asked Shui Yong, "Since you two are from the same company, don't you sing karaoke together when you go out?" Shui Yong said, "Actually, Sister Che hogs the microphone when we sing karaoke. We are always being tormented. We've already gotten used to it." Everyone started chatting happily, bringing up some incidents involving Lin Che and Shui Yong who were from the same company. They brought a lot of conversation and laughter. This went on until the program ended for the day. The scores would be revealed during the program the next day. After filming ended, everyone left one by one. Lin Che was thoroughly exhausted after dancing. However, when she left, she saw that someone had unexpectedly come to pick her up at the entrance. Gu Jingze actually came here without any warning. Chapter 828. This man was definitely very rich. Gu Jingze merely stood outside waiting. He was leaning against the car and looking inside. He usually did not like smoking but he did not mind it either. However, he had never been addicted to smoking. He also didn't like playing with his phone. Thus, he just stood there ramrod straight at this moment. He looked like the scenery as he stood in the deep night. People were not usually allowed into this place but Gu Jingze had special privileges wherever he went. When they saw Lin Che leave the building, the staff members of the television station hastily walked towards Lin Che and said, "Miss Lin, you're here. That man has been waiting for you for a very long time." Hearing this, Lin Che quickly thanked the staff and ran in Gu Jingze's direction. "Gu Jingze, how did you get in?" She looked at the staff behind them who did not seem to know who Gu Jingze was either. Gu Jingze said, "I asked someone for this special pass." Gu Jingze took out a pass from his pocket and showed it to Lin Che. Lin Che let out a sound of affirmation. In any case, she knew that he would always find a way. She was just curious about what method he had used this time to get in. Gu Jingze asked, "How did it go? Has the live broadcast ended?" "Yes, it just ended. Abby and the rest are over there." Gu Jingze looked up and nodded at Abby by way of greeting. "Over here," Abby mumbled to Yu Minmin, "he follows her so closely." Yu Minmin said, "It's fine once you get used to it." The two of them looked at each other and smiled. However, they saw Peng Yu, who had disappeared earlier, come out of the room opposite them. Earlier, Peng Yu was so angry that she immediately locked herself in her dressing room and refused to come out. No matter how much her staff members knocked on the door, she simply refused to come out. Regardless of how much hard work she put into her performance, she did not manage to beat Lin Che because Lin Che played a trick on her and changed her performance to a musical performance at the last minute. Her performance was a breath of fresh air, and at the same time, she showed off her dancing skills and her acting skills too. The audience at the venue was completely entranced. The directors on the judging panel were staring straight at her. No matter how her score turned out the next day, she was already the winner today. Outside, the staff members were unbearably angry. They had already told her from the start to stay in her lane, but she refused to. Now, she had instead given Lin Che the chance to shine. Peng Yu did not reflect on herself properly but instead hid herself inside and refused to come out. When Peng Yu came out, her staff member said, "Lin Che filmed an interview outside just now. It was really great. Everyone was very lively during the live broadcast." Peng Yu was even angrier. She pushed her staff member aside immediately and walked out with a foul expression on her face. She did not expect to see Lin Che and her entourage still outside the moment she went out. Peng Yu was about to walk over there and vent her anger when she saw that Lin Che was unexpectedly standing beside a man. The man was like a piece of cold jade buried deep under the ground. He emitted a cold and noble aura from head to toe. His pretty and attractive face and his perfect figure were truly unforgettable with one glance. Peng Yu froze instantly. Her eyes moved and she was already unknowingly making hard eyes. What an enchanting man. There were plenty of handsome men in the entertainment industry, but it was her first time seeing a man who had everything: aura, appearance, and presence. He was perfect. It immediately occurred to Peng Yu that this person was probably the man who had appeared with Lin Che back then. Although he appeared very blurry in the photos and people could not see him clearly, it was possible to recognize him immediately when she compared the photo to the actual person. How could it be possible to find a second person with such a perfect side profile? Her eyes lit up more and more. She was basically staring straight at the man. Gu Jingze held Lin Che by her shoulders. "Come on, I'll take you back to the hotel." "Oh, all right. If you're here, what about Nianian? Someone is looking after him. Don't worry." In reality, Nianian was very busy. He had to attend kindergarten in the day and still had to attend other training sessions at night. Lin Che let out a sound of affirmation and nodded her head. Behind them, Peng Yu quickly walked a few steps forward. Upon hearing the noise, Gu Jingze turned his head and looked coldly in Peng Yu's direction. In the split second that his ice-cold gaze landed on her, the soles of Peng Yu's feet seemed to involuntarily root themselves onto the ground. She looked in his direction without moving at all. Gu Jingze glanced at her without a word and immediately got into the car with Lin Che. The two of them stayed in the car for a long time. Peng Yu stood there while regaining her bearings. She looked in the direction that Gu Jingze had left, her brain spinning quickly. Behind her, her staff members had caught up with her. "Are we leaving?" they asked Peng Yu. Peng Yu asked, "What are you rushing me for?" She turned around and pulled someone to her. "Who was that man who just left with Lin Che?" "Huh, we don't know." Peng Yu said, "That man must be very rich." "Huh." The staff member looked at Peng Yu's sparkling eyes and felt a little confused. "No matter how rich he is, it has nothing to do with you." Abby scoffed and floated past her with her arms across her chest. "What did you say?" Peng Yu lifted her face and shouted. However, she saw Shui Yong carrying his own rucksack behind Abby. He floated towards her with an air of warning. Peng Yu scoffed and said, "Seriously? You don't seem like a manager at all. Shui Yong, you're such a wimp." A famous star like you even has to carry his own bag. What does your manager do? Humph, she seems just as arrogant as your boss. Shui Yang glanced at her. My manager is my closest companion. It's not a must for us to do certain things for each other. The person who can do it will do it. I'm a man, I would just be a laughingstock if I let my manager carry my bag for me. Besides, I've always believed that relationships are reciprocal. She will only treat you well if you treat her well. If you don't treat your manager like a human, then your future, huh? Peng Yu's expression changed again. Behind her, Abby was immensely satisfied. She looked at Shui Yang. Let's go. Don't reason with people like these. Shui Yang nodded and followed Abby out. Peng Yu spat, who does she think she is? Of course, she did not know that a rich young heiress like Abby was a manager for sincere reasons. She was Shui Yang's manager because she wanted to be friends with him. She treated Shui Yang with sincerity and did not want to earn money off of Shui Yang. Shui Yang himself knew this, so he naturally treated Abby as a true friend as well. After being together for so long, a few words from someone else was definitely not enough to sow discord between them. Peng Yu even thought that Abby was just a simple young female manager. She did not know Abby's true identity. She snorted and continued to think about how cowardly Shui Yang was. Peng Yu said to the person beside her, go and find out who the man with Lin Che is. Oh yes. Peng Yu said, he's definitely not an ordinary person. He must be a major sponsor. I didn't expect Lin Che to actually have such backing. No wonder she behaves so arrogantly all the time. Everyone seemed to have guessed Peng Yu's intentions. Someone said to her, Lin Che will still be around today. Let's not make things worse. We'll find out when we go back. Peng Yu turned around and shouted, go and find out now. What is there to be afraid of? Yes. The staff member dared not say more and quickly left. Peng Yu lifted her dress and asked, which hotel did the television station book for us? Let's move there right now. Chapter 829. Black Hawk said that he had to fulfill his promise. Her staff members were momentarily stunned. What? Peng Yu asked, what's the matter? Can't I cooperate with the television station? Go and tell them that we want a suite at that hotel. Also, I want the same kind of room as Lin Che. It better be close to her room, on the same floor, and look the same. It can't be different in any way. That day, the program immediately garnered high viewer ratings the moment it was broadcast. Several interesting incidents that happened during the live broadcast were immediately uploaded on Weibo and shared. Lin Che had an edge in the sense that she spoke in a very amusing manner and created her own highlights. Since she started getting famous in the past, she had made fun of herself without ever caring about her image. She did not seem pretentious at all and instead always seemed to let nature take its course. Her interactions with the host were very smooth as well. The pace of the entire program was extremely good and it felt like they were engaging in mutual banter. The venue became lively as well and there was constant laughter. Many funny segments were uploaded online and shared by people. Many people quickly went to watch the program online because of Lin Che's segments. Thus, after the viewer ratings went up, the number of online streams went up even more. Not long after the program began its broadcast, the number of online streams already began rising. Businesses were good at seizing the opportune moment and had ample information. Upon seeing the situation, they immediately called Yu Minmin. When Yu Minmin picked up the calls, she was extremely surprised. A few programs called her consecutively to ask if Lin Che was interested in participating in their variety shows. Everyone really wanted Lin Che to participate because they felt that she did particularly well on variety shows. Yu Minmin hastily responded, I'm sorry. We don't have any intentions to participate in any variety shows at the moment. We will contact you if we want to participate. Lin Che was intending to become a serious actress. She was not going to develop in the area of variety programs. It was fine to participate in one or two variety shows, but her image would change if she kept appearing in them. So even for variety shows, they had to choose carefully. She could only attend variety shows that would definitely be popular. If she appeared on shows that were not popular, it would instead damage her image. As she watched the news, Yu Minmin felt that Lin Che did indeed have talent in this aspect. She was very good at controlling the situation. When she watched Lin Che's interview, Lin Che's interactions with Shui Yang and her stories about the two of them in the company, about Shui Yang's little secrets, and the first time they met, the lively and vivid way she described these things made people laugh in spite of themselves and immediately attracted their attention. They definitely would not skip her segment, nor would they find it awkward at all. At the hospital, Mu Feiren decided on a suitable house and brought Union there. While driving, she felt a little unfamiliar with some of the traffic rules here as they were slightly different from the rules in America. After staying abroad for so long, she had gotten used to the roads there. She still felt a little strange after just buying a car here. With Union beside her, she was even more careful. She glanced at Union reading a book obediently in the baby car seat and smiled. She felt very happy that Union could continue going to school with Nianian here. As long as Union was happy, it was worth it for her to stay here. Mu Feiren's handphone started ringing. She saw that it was unexpectedly Gu Jingze again. She still had the cheek to call. Mu Feiren put in her earphones and took the call. Seeing that the call had gotten through, Gu Jingze hastily said, "Mu Feiren, not bad. When did you manage to seduce such an impressive sponsor?" Mu Feiren asked, "Are you trying to ask me to return those photos?" "Sorry, there's no chance of that now." "You don't be too arrogant, Mu Feiren, it's useless for you to hold on to these photos too. I know that you're not lacking in money either, but no one will be averse to having more money. Just name a price. How much money do you want before you will return the photos to me?" "Excuse me for not being able to agree. I'm not selling them." Mu Feiren scoffed and immediately hung up the phone. She knew that Gu Jingze was now afraid, cowardly, and starting to relax her stance. Since that was the case, she was definitely not afraid that Gu Jingze would do anything. She proceeded to pick up her phone and immediately said to someone, "Regarding the photos I was talking about earlier, help me release them online. Remember to blur out the faces. Use the caption, 'High society is such a mess.' Let people know that this person is from the entertainment industry, but don't reveal who it is." Since Gu Jingze had treated her that way the last time, she would not leave things as they were. The person on the other end of the line instantly replied, "All right. Don't worry, I'll release the photos now." After making the arrangements, she turned to look at Union. Naturally, Union could not hear what Mu Feiren was saying since she was wearing earphones. Mu Feiren did not want things like this to affect her daughter at all. Although she didn't even know who Union's biological father was, Union was a blank canvas from the moment she was born. As her mother, it was up to Mu Feiren to draw her future. Thus, she did not care who Union's father was. No matter what, Union was her darling. After alighting from the car, they just got inside their home when the kindergarten suddenly called to inform her that there was something wrong with the formalities for Union's admission. Mu Feiren asked gloomily, "What's wrong?" The kindergarten staff said, "The disease prevention form that we use here is missing. Our students must undergo the process before being admitted into the kindergarten. Now that she doesn't have it, we need this procedure to be done. Let us know when you're available." Mu Feiren had no choice but to say, "All right, I'll do it right now." Mu Feiren took Union out again. In any event, she had nothing on that night, so she could bring Union there and then take her elsewhere too. However, upon arriving at the kindergarten, she saw Mo Jinyan standing at the entrance. She looked at Mo Jinyan, who stood there dressed in black from head to toe. His coat made him look very tall and well built. Although he had a cold air about him, he smiled when he walked over to them. "You're here." The moment Union saw Mo Jinyan, she quickly greeted him sweetly, "Hello, Uncle Mo." Mo Jinyan's gaze softened even more as he looked at her. He looked down and swiftly lifted Union off the ground. Mu Feiren looked at him in surprise. "Why are you here?" Mo Jinyan said, "Oh, the kindergarten called me. I arrived just now and I've already settled things. You don't have to bring Union in." "What?" Mu Feiren was even more confused. "Why did the kindergarten call you?" Mo Jinyan looked at Union and the corners of his lips turned up. "Since I said before that I would protect you and Union, then I should undertake full responsibility. Thus, I gave the kindergarten my number. They can give me a call if there are any issues." "What?" Mu Feiren was a bit taken aback. "Give him a call if there were issues?" She asked sheepishly, "How could we trouble you?" Although Mo Jinyan had indeed said that before, she did not actually believe it. She had never expected him to fulfill his promise either. He had nothing to do with her at all. There was no need for him to do so much for her. Thank you, but it's better to leave trivial things like these to me. No way, Mo Jinyan said lowly. I, Mo Jinyan, always mean what I say. Otherwise, how would I survive in this day and age? If other people say that I actually talked big and said empty words, who will listen to me in the future? Besides, these are just trivial matters. But if you really feel guilty, you can treat me to a meal. I came here before finishing my meal earlier. Asterisk. Chapter 830. This man is a black eagle. Mu Feiren did not realize at the moment he would change his attitude so quickly, suddenly wanting to treat her to a meal. But since he already said so, she could not reject him. After all, he said he could not have a meal because he had to come to her place mid-travel. Right at this moment, Union was not a great help by shouting at the side, Uncle Mo, I also haven't eaten, let us eat together. Mu Feiren wanted to say that this was the infamous boss of the mafia. She wanted to tell Union to please not call him, Uncle Mo, so endearingly. After Lin Che told Mu Feiren about the history of the Black Eagle, Mu Feiren also occasionally asked other people and looked at the information online. Expectedly, as Lin Che said, Black Eagle was not some good guy, but a frightening boss of the mafia. He definitely had a dark past and scary legends. He seemed so gentle now, but Mu Feiren was still not familiar with him, so she did not dare to completely trust him. She was slightly worried that he would turn around and become the Black Eagle. Who knew if he would suddenly turn his back on her? Mu Feiren looked at Union, who was still latched onto him. However, when Mo Jingyan carried Union, they looked surprisingly harmonious. Union's petite body enclosed within Mo Jingyan's wide hug made it seem all the more adorable. This scene made Mu Feiren remember that Union was never so close to an adult male before because she did not have a father. Mu Feiren's heart squeezed and she bitterly smiled at Mo Jingyan. Okay, I should treat you to a meal. Where do you want to go to eat? Mo Jingyan looked at Mu Feiren. I don't like eating food outside. It's too unhealthy. What did he mean by not eating food outside? Did he mean that he wants to eat home-cooked food? Home-cooked was she supposed to cook? Didn't that mean they had to go to her house? Mu Feiren internally grumbled. She thought Mo Jingyan was too shameless for a person who she had just met. But then again, he should not have any other ulterior motives. As the boss of the mafia and the leader of the business sector, how could he like a normal outdated artist like her? She could only agree. Mo Jingyan said, let's go, ride my car and I'll drive. Ride mine, I can send you back later. Mu Feiren said. However, Mu Feiren immediately noticed that Mo Jingyan's car was a black-white Lamborghini race car. But although her car was not cheap either, it was too lousy in comparison. She suddenly felt that it would be degrading for Mo Jingyan to sit in her car. She abashedly said, if not, you drive your car and follow me. Mo Jingyan looked back at his car, which was a two-seater race car. The turf was very low and it would not be convenient for a child to sit inside. He turned back and said, all right. Let's use your car. Ah. Mu Feiren looked at Mo Jingyan walking towards her car and quickly followed. Mu Feiren placed Union on the child's seat behind. Mo Jingyan looked at the child's seat and turned back to sit at the front seat. Mu Feiren's car is more feminine, so when Mu Feiren saw him sit down, it seemed a little small. Mo Jingyan was tall and buff, so when he sat down, the originally not so small car seemed extremely cramped suddenly. Mu Feiren thought strangely, was her car originally that small? She thought it was really uncomfortable that Mo Jingyan sat inside, but she could not say anything at the moment. Thus, she could only quickly drive to reach home earlier. Mu Feiren's home was decorated endearingly. Because it housed only Union and her, all decorations and flooring were very feminine. Once you entered, you could feel the difference in the atmosphere. Mu Feiren let Union play with Mo Jingyan and hurried to inside to start cooking. Her cooking was alright and not particularly delicious, but her home-cooked food was still considered edible. She hurriedly made a few dishes. When she went out, she saw Union playing with Mo Jingyan. Union happily climbed onto Mo Jingyan, who laughed boisterously. He squinted his eyes and placed Union on his neck to ride himself, and twirled around the room. Yunyan's happy laughter filled the entire room. She shyly hugged Mo Jingyan, her little face red with laughter. Mu Feiran suddenly felt a sense of warmth as if she just saw a dream. But the next moment, she thought Yunyan was too daring. This was Black Eagle she was talking about. Mu Feiran looked at the time. It had unknowingly reached 9. She gratefully said, "Okay, the food is ready. Come and eat." Mo Jingyan hugged Yunyan and said, "Okay, good Yunyan, come and eat together." "Okay." Mu Feiran hurriedly took Yunyan back and said, "Sorry, you had to play with her." Mo Jingyan sat down in her chair a little small for him. Mu Feiran bit on her lips and sighed. That was because she never thought she would have this sort of guest in her house. She looked worriedly at Mo Jingyan, but she realized her dishes seemed to fit this big shot's palate. He gulped down bite after bite and quickly finished his meal. She did not dare to let Yunyan stay behind and trouble him, so she brought her in to wash the dishes. Yunyan was very sensible. She watched Mu Feiran do the dirty dishes since she was young and even obediently helped at the side. After she was done and went out, she saw Mo Jingyan leaning against the sofa with his eyes closed as if he was asleep. She froze. She saw his long legs stretched out. Actually, his body proportion was very good. His 2 long legs were very toned, but his body seemed very thin and long. And that face. He should have a cold look, but once asleep, he looked very demure. However, his eyebrows were furrowed, so he still looked a little stern even while asleep. This man was undeniably handsome. At least it was the type of face that would make people fall in love. Mu Feiran actually did not have many requirements for a man's looks. If not, she would not have married Mo Ding after seeing so many handsome men in the entertainment industry. But this man gave her have different thoughts. Actually there was some use to men looking handsome. It made it much more pleasant to look at. Could it be because she got hurt from Mo Ding, so her criteria for choosing men had changed? She quickly patted her face and speechlessly thought, what choosing men? This man was Mo Jingyan, the Black Eagle. She must be crazy to just think of him as a man.